Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Kill Team 40k podcast and YouTube channel, focused giving you the strategies and tactics to siege initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined by a special guest. It's the leader of the herd, the winner of the first Turning Point Tactics TTS tournament, it's Nigerian. Welcome to the show. How's it going, dude?
Hey, hi Ryan. I'm doing good. What about you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, and I mean, you must be doing pretty well because you just won a tournament against some pretty good players, which is obviously always a good way to start a year, I guess, or end a year. So obviously, for a lot of people listening to this, they might not necessarily know who you are, or maybe they do, but it's an opportunity for you to maybe introduce yourself to the wider community. We're doing a little bit of a Meet the Meta series soon, so we're going to try and get around, talk to more people, and get the community to know a bit more about each other. So for all those people who are listening, could you maybe introduce yourself, tell us who you are and why you play Kill Team?
Sure. So my name is Frwa. As you might have guessed, I am a French player living in Nantes, west of France. As for in the Kill Team competitive scene, I was first last year during our French league, I might say, and also won the Invitational to decide the golden ticket winner for France, but I wasn't able to go to Atlanta, unfortunately, and it's a shame because it sounded like you guys had a lot of fun there.
Yeah, it was great fun. It would have been awesome to see you there as well because the two French guys who are out there were good fun as well. So it was Martin and what was the other guy's name?
And Thibaut, yeah.
Thibaut, yeah, with his Star Striders. Yeah, they're great dudes. So but they've tried to get me down to Paris, hopefully. So I'm definitely keen to try and do that at some point soon. But it's a shame you couldn't make it because would you have taken? Well, what teams do you play and why? You know, what sort of things are appealing to you at the moment?
What I like mostly are like real specialist team, like where every operative has some place, and I feel that really is the spirit of the game. And also I like close range rather than long range most of the time. So I like team like Fellgore's a lot and Gearbox, things like that. But I dislike teams like Chaos Cult a bit for gameplay purposes because it's not really like a specialist team. It's not where its strength lies. So,
I gotcha. You like that where each model has its own unique little abilities that it adds to the game, that sort of thing. And it sounds like melee teams as well seem to be a bit of your specialty.
Yes. Well, I guess melee team is. I like melee team because I like when I play competitively, I guess, controlling the outcome a lot. So I will play teams like 4 Stalker's Kingbane or Novitiates, one for controlling the scoring and one for controlling the dice. And for melee team, you have a lot of control because you can like target your opponent a lot, and you can control the flow of the game this way.
Yeah, and I guess one of the interesting things as well, a lot of people I think overlook when it comes to melee teams is you don't always have to fight with them, right? Like you can just charge and lock models up and not fight, and you can just pass and you can do whatever you need to do, or you can stack your advantages to make sure that when you do, it's a single hit that you need, right, or something like that to be able to kill models. That level of control, I think, is really interesting with melee teams. But that's the sort of thing that's bringing you towards it, right? Is that the main sort of control play that you enjoy?
Yes, you're absolutely right about the way melee team can be played this way, and especially Fellgore's, as we are going to discuss, I guess.
yeah, because obviously you took Fellgore's to the Turning Point Tactics TTS tournament, which was awesome to see, and they're a team that I think people are maybe sleeping on a little bit, or maybe underestimating because recently I've seen them perform quite well at both the TTS tournament that I held and my in-person live tournament as well. So I'm really interested because I haven't played as them that much. So I'm really interested to hear what other people think and get your viewpoints on it. So maybe we should just get straight into talking about Fellgore's if you want to do that.
Oh, let's go.
Alrighty. So I mean, the first thing that I think most people want to know. So I've been doing a threat guide series, which is coming out on the Patreon at the moment, but there's probably a bit of time and it will come out to everyone else as well on YouTube. And the first thing that I tried to highlight on that threat guide series is really talking about what the strengths of a team are. So what do you think are the main strengths of Fellgore Ravagers, and what's good about them?
Yeah, sure. So The first team I will say is obviously the first thing that come to mind when you look at the team is the frenzy ability, which make you delay your operative dying basically, and obviously it messes up with the opponent APL economy in a big way, because even though you can, let's say you can always kill a frenzied goat, that you still have to spend some action point for it. And so that's the first one for me. It's the obvious one, the frenzy.
That makes perfect sense, because you're wasting a whole activation to kill the guy again, right? Even if you have a lethal weapon, you have to kill him the first time and then kill him again, which is a lot of excess shooting.
Yes, exactly. And now with the recent data slates, since now the goats count for 1 for controlling points as far as APL for the APL to control points, I mean, then your opponent cannot just ignore most of the time a frenzied goat on an objective.
Yeah, exactly. You have to respect it, right? And you can also do some crazy things with them, I guess, where because they still count as 1, you can still charge in and loot objectives or take objectives from people by using that extra APL if you have another goat on there potentially.
Yeah. The second thing for me is their survivability and resilience, because there is frenzy. That's obviously something. You don't remove an incapacitated goat, basically, so that's something for survivability. But there are also 10 models with 10 wounds, and actually 3 of them are 11 wounds. And you have some absolute monster in there, such as the Death Snare, which can have a free up invent save, and has a free aura of 3 inches of no crit damage. And on top of that, you have some very good proc called Reckless Determination, when you can auto-retain 1 save if you are not ready, which is huge a lot of the time. And on top of that, you have the Shaman with the Super Conceal, and you can have a huge 6 wound heal with him. So there's a lot of tool for not dying, even without frenzy.
Yeah, and that's really interesting as well, because like the auto-retain 1 save, you wouldn't think it's that impactful, but you stack it up multiple times over multiple shooting attacks, and it really comes into effect, because they're only a 5-up save normally, right? So just forcing that extra damage needed every single time with 10 wounds just means that they're surprisingly hard to kill. And it pairs, you say, really nicely with the invulnerable save if you use that as well.
Yeah, just as an illustration with the Death Snare and its 3-up invert save activated. During a training match with my mate, with Phobos, it survived like the 2 mines and 2 shooting attacks.
Oh, nice.
So that was before frenzy, you know.
Yeah. Throwing the whole kitchen sink at them and they just keep coming.
Yeah. Okay, so the 0 point, I would say, it's their movement and their speed. Because you have a lot of tools to increase your strength range. For example, call the attack, which is a great ability of the leader that can choose a visible model during the strategic phase, and everyone within 2 can perform a free dash. And you have a charge. After killing a model with a ploy, you can have +1 to your normal move, to your movement characteristic, I mean. And with the equipment, the war paint, you have no penalty when injured. So they're fast. They're really fast, and they can go anywhere after the first turning point, I would say.
And this is, like, I think, really, really important for Kill Team in particular, because Kill Team is a lot about movement and how you move and where you move and the things you do with it. So any sort of ability to buff that in any way is really, really impactful. So that even just that +1 inch move is huge, but combine that with a scouting phase dash, and suddenly you're reaching people that they didn't even think about, because it's 10 inches away that they were like, oh wait, what? You can reach that far? Which is, for a melee team, is what you want, right? And that's how you can get around, and you can really hurt some people. So it's awesome how many different ways they have to buff that movement potential.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also really allows you to distribute your forces. I guess if you are on open, it's more limited into the dark. But they have a lot of tools to be where they need to be, basically.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Do you reckon that's all of their main strengths captured, or is there more?
I can add two other points very quickly. One thing is that the fact that they have access to two very good archetypes, like Seek and Destroy and Recon, which are arguably, I can say, the two best archetype in the game, and also good faction tech-ups.
Yeah, and that's without doubt. I think Recon and Seek and Destroy are by far the strongest. I think initially I was preferring Recon, but the more the game has gone on, I've seen prefer Seek and Destroy a bit more, because I think people are getting a bit better at playing against Recon now. That they're learning to predict it a little bit, but still on some maps it's just free points and you just can't say no. So having the option of both of those and being able to flex between the two strongest archetypes is really, really strong.
Yes, and I think both of them really have some place with Fellgore, because with Recon, for example, it goes well with the idea of staying in melee and really messing with your opponent and being in their face. I mean, it goes well with some tac ops, such as Search Reward, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And so their faction tac ops, you mentioned them being quite strong as well. Do you have any sort of particular favourite out of the three that you would take?
Yes, I guess most of the time I would go with Relentless Aggression, which basically you have to have 5 goats within 6 of an enemy operative or within 6 of the opponent drop zone. So if you can manage to score that turn 1, if the opponent, for example, is very aggressive in its move turn 1, then it should be very doable turn 2. So it's very easy to max. And but I may sometimes play Scan Their Ways. For example, if the enemy has a Melta, for example. So basically it means that either they don't use it, or if I kill it in melee, I get 2 points. So, and a Melta staying behind is maybe not the best for the opponent.
Or like a Veteran Guard, Demo Mine or something like that. You're really punishing them to use their tools, and you're going to score. And realistically, Fellgore are going to kill them in melee, right? You're not going to kill them in shooting. So the Relentless Aggression one I find really interesting as well, because effectively you get 4 opportunities to score it. And I think those sorts of tac-ups where you have more opportunities to score is always better. And it does feel quite easy to score it, right? You're a fast team, you move quickly anyway, you want to be moving into the mid-board, and 6 inches is a huge range to be able to get enemies within range of. So if you're particularly on a map with maybe 4 objectives in the mid-board, well, it would be amazing if you didn't score that turning point 1, It'd be...
absolutely.
It's a really strong tac-up. I really like it.
Yeah, and also you have to reveal it at the end of the turning point. So it can come up as a surprise, but I guess as the people start playing against Fellgore, then they will adapt maybe more in the future. And
even their Fellgore champion one, because this whole revealing it towards the end, I find to be really strong as well, because I think you're right. I think the Scoring Their Ways and Relentless Aggression are probably the better of the two. But even Fellgore champion, I think, still pretty good. It's kind of like a Robin Ransack that you can do on turning point 3, and as long as you get another kill, you can potentially score quite well on it. So and the likelihood is that these guys will kill. So if you wait towards the end, you can get quite sneaky and suddenly get a rapid 2VP. But I think you're probably correct, though. I think Relentless Aggression is just too good to say no to. But
yeah, that's strange to have that many good choice in faction tac-ups.
This is it, because normally faction tac-ups are all pretty useless, right? Or you have one good one maybe and 2 bad ones. But for Fellgore, it's like they literally got all the good tac-ups, I think. So mission scoring should be good for this team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you say you had one last strength, or are we on to
Oh yeah, just a little small one. They have access to a wide variety of mortal wound spam abilities, and so I think it's good because it works well with their gameplay to to maybe not kill your opponent in combat, but like wearing him down with mortal wounds. And so that's not obviously a lot of mortal wounds, but it's a little bonus, I would say, that can help him in a lot of situations.
I think the interesting thing of that as well is because a lot of the enemy teams, they really do well with like their breakpoints. Let's say you're playing against like commandos, you don't necessarily want to just be hitting them like just straight up in a trading match, because you're dealing as much damage to each other as you go. But potentially, as you say, using like the Vandal to deal out a bunch of mortal wounds to people nearby you can suddenly turn the breakpoint from being in their favor to very much in your favor. And even with just a scratch, you can then potentially kill them. And that's a really interesting way of like looking at how you can use this team. And as you say, I think it's the Tox Horn as well that can throw the grenade. And you have the other guy that I forget the name of him, who can move the flux spray. Yeah, so that is as you say, there's a lot of different ways to apply mortal wounds and really mess with breakpoints, which for a melee team is absolutely perfect, because potentially if you apply enough mortal wounds, well, you can be just one hitting guys, right, and then you're not taking any damage, which is pretty scary.
Absolutely.
That's covered a lot of strengths of the teams. There has to be hopefully some weekenesses. Is there any that you can think of?
Yeah, sure. And I think it can be categorized into two parts, like the what is controllable and what is not controllable, unfortunately. And for what is not, I would say that as a melee team, it's obviously like the other one, it's very terrain dependent. So if you have a lot of heavy to hide turn one, it would be a lot easier for you, for example. And another uncontrollable variable is that it has some very bad matchups against some of the top meta teams. For example, the two other melee teams that are Gellerpox and maybe Cult still, and obviously the bad boys, the commandos.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. They are. I think they're still going to be at the top of the meta for a little while yet. I'll be surprised if they get taken off the throne at the moment.
Yeah, and they really have everything they want against Fellgore, because they are great at melee, as you said before. They have access to just a squash, so they can take a lot of damage. They can use the squid very freely, without too much risk for them, and they can fight at the end of turning point, so they can finish one of your gods off. So yeah, they really have all the tools to counter Fellgores.
Yeah, and I think, as you say as well, a few bits I'll touch on. I think with the other melee teams, which I think can really hurt you, is the injury auras, and because a lot of the team hits on fours, and as soon as you then go from hitting on fours to hitting on, hitting on threes to hitting on fours, whatever. Your reliability just drops, and I'm not quite sure what it is about trying to hit people on threes versus fours, but with 4 attacks in melee, it just feels so bad. Like you just go I don't know what happens, but
yeah,
it goes wrong real quickly.
And yeah, so they have access to some rerolls. I guess they have a Ploid who you can reroll all of your dice if you want to, but you cannot choose. It's not relentless. You have to reroll everything or nothing. And and basically you don't want to with combat roll with them, especially when it is your activation, because you will just die at the end and frenzy will be useless. So they are in a tough post against other melee team, because they have less operative than Cult and they have less wound than Gellerpox. So if you are Urk and you just get one hit, then you will take some damage in return, but will most likely survive.
That's true. I always touch on another bit you just mentioned previously. So you talked about them being a terrain-dependent team. Would you prefer to be playing them on Into the Dark or Open Board? Do you have a preference?
I have a preference because I rather play in Open than Into the Dark in general. But I think I would say that if the Open has a lot of heavy part, then it's a bit like Gellerpox, because it's easier to set up big plays, I find, in Open than in into the dark. For example, using doors, and you can cross at the beginning of the turning point with your free dash and this sort of stuff. Obviously it's more limited into the dark, and also the board is bigger. Just basically, so as a melee team, that you want to be close.
There's a few other points as well that I've thought about when looking at Fellgore on Into the Dark. So we talked about movement and their movement potential, and one of the issues that I find in Into the Dark is that on the corridors in particular, with barricade placement and a counter melee barricade and a model just behind it, you can base block people, so you can stop it. You can stop quite a lot of the Fellgores actually being able to get into melee with you, which is where they do best. And then a lot of their shooting is really not that great. So you can suddenly be, just within 1 inch of a barricade and blocking an entire corridor, and now they have to try and shoot this guy that they can't actually reach with their melee weapons. And the other thing that I think might be applicable is now with the shooting nerf and the fact that if you get crits in shooting after they've been frenzied, you can kill them with that. Well, the fact that a lot of teams have access to frag grenades and splash weapons or torrent weapons, so now that get lethal 5, like normally rolling a crit and open would be pretty unlikely, but with that lethal 5 it becomes far more likely. So I think for me it feels like for Fellgore there's a little bit of like counter synergy in Into the Dark, where they just, maybe as you say, just don't play quite as well on that bigger map. There's less APL on the team to open doors, and with that lethal 5 and the ability to block routes, it feels a little bit like they might be, just struggling a little bit in that environment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those are great points. And I would just add one is also that the fact that the leaders call the attack ability, the 3-1, the leader has to have visibility. And so basically Into the Dark, you will not be able to help one side of the map with this ability, and it's pretty huge sometimes in open to be able to dash with an operative at the other side of the map.
For sure. There's one strength that I did just think of, which I don't think we touched on when we were talking about the team, but I think this is probably the team with the largest amount of access to the brutal melee, the brutal keyword, which I think quite, in my opinion, overlooked as a melee capability, because like so often people will just parry out to survive, and you see it with Navy Breaches, you see it with Vet Guard and that sort of stuff. If you don't get your 3 hits, they'll parry and they'll live because you didn't have enough sufficient damage. Well, with Brutal, you suddenly only need 2 hits and they need to roll a crit, so it spikes the reliability of you getting those kills through. And I think as a melee team goes, this team seems to have the access to more of it than anyone else, or it feels that way at least.
Absolutely. And also, I would say that I at least the way I want to play the team, I want to be able to hide in melee. So a lot of the time, I will try to charge one ready operative and one activated operative of the enemy. And so I will fight a lot of the time with combat support against me. So even for a veteran player or something, it would be easy to have hits to parry and survive.
And that's exactly what you don't want to have. But okay, well, I think that's a pretty good intro to the two teams. What I'm going to just quickly do is just a little bit of a shout out to anyone listening that's been introduced by this so far and thinks that they might want to try and support the channel. There's a few ways that you can go about doing that, and if you want to get access to all this content early and ahead of time, you can do so by joining our Patreon. But you also get access to the Discord, where people like Ligerian are playing on the TTS tournament. You also get access to a priority Q&A, so if you have a question about the show that you want to get answered, you can send it in and we'll get it answered on air, as well as exclusive content and tournament rewards. But we'll get back straight into talking about Fellgores, because I think this is actually really interesting and I want to try and spend a bit more time unpicking it as much as we can. So the next thing that we sort of cover off when we're looking at threats and doing a threat guide is really what we call gotchas, right? So it's stuff that's going to catch people out that they didn't know that you could do. And I think you've already highlighted a couple of them already, but it's probably worth just reiterating what those main ones are. So what main gotchas do you think Fellgores have?
Well, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Actually, if you take the 4 tactical pros, you can basically say they are all gotchas, because you have one with the +1 to move during a goat activation. You have the 3 in charge after you incapacitate an enemy operative. You have +1 damage when you strike with one of your crits, and you can have a double activation when you kill someone. So take every single one of them, and they're kind of a gotcha. So when you play against them, you really have to know what they can do.
Just on those points, because as you say, each one of those are just so good. Like being able to do GA2, being able to just increase your damage threshold to be able to make it so that someone dies when they weren't expecting it, or force through a kill where they didn't necessarily know was going to happen, or one-hit kill, whatever, is really good. And you already talked about the fact that you want to hide in combat. They have an ability just to do that naturally. So all their tactical boys, I think, are exceptionally good. I'm interested to know how you balance your CP on this team.
And that's hard, yeah. That's probably one weakness, I would say, we can add to them. I would say that not all the tactical ploys will be useful, because each one of them is very powerful, but each is kind of situational as well. So sometimes I will use, like, for example, let's say, I guess, Eurotech Circle, for example, with their base key mine. I will use the +1 move a lot, for example, and I may not choose the other at all. And sometimes I will use the second tree in charge a lot, for example, against a very hardy team like Veteran. And so I guess you will still spend a lot of CP with deploy, even though it's unclear which one will be used. And as far as strategic polar is concerned, well, I will mostly use the auto retain against shooty team, but I will only use it like turning point 1 or 2 maybe, and then as I will have more and more injured goats, I will need some rerolls basically. So, and obvious also the ambush one, the last useful ploy to get a crit is very important. It's some matchup mostly against Nurgle Legionary, for example, when you want to do crit damage most of the time.
And that has that great synergy with the tactical ploy you mentioned, the Animalistic Fury, where you can then add that additional damage, right? So you can get that crit and then suddenly put another damage through that people might not have been expecting. So so there's some interesting synergies there between the strategic ploys and the tactical ploys.
Yeah. So as far as overall gotchas are concerned, I will just mention like a combo, I guess, of gotcha, which is the infamous Northscar Alpha Strike turn 1, which I like a lot as a strategy, which is basically you have an Northscar, which is, in my opinion, like maybe one of the best operative, like 10 wound operative in the game, who can basically shoot and fight for 1 APL and shoot also into melee. So basically it gets a crack grenade and it can toss a crack and then fight for 1 APL. So what you can do is that you can recon dash the Nalskar at the end and still leave him within 2 of one of your other goats. Then using Colty Attack for the leader, you can dash another 3. And then you can do a charge against one of the opponent operative. It could be an 8 in charge or a 9 in charge with deploy. So effectively, you have a 16 each threat range with him. So in short deployment, that's basically the distances between the 2 deployment zones. And then with him, you can then fight and toss your crack if you kill your opponent, or do the crack first and then fight if you are against elite operative. And then at the end of this activation, you can change its order in order for him not to be shootable. So this Alpha Strike, I would call it, can be really powerful if the opponent is not prepared.
Yeah, I think that's adds insult to injury, right? Like, not just have you gone across and potentially killed 2 models in the first activation, you then switch back to conceal, and then they can't do anything about it. Like, it's that's like a really harsh like opening gambit, which a lot of people probably won't see coming for them. So make sure you have a look at where that Gnarlscar might be coming and get some barricades to slow them down potentially, or an APL modifier, take the initiative, or whatever you need to do to stop him from being able to reach you, because that does sound pretty violent. And he's good in melee as well with his Bionic Fist, right? Because That's 4 attacks and 3s, 4, 5 and brutal. So again, he probably only needs to get 2 hits. He's going to kill most models, and then he's going to then throw his crack grenade for another 4 or 5 damage weapon, which is that sounds pretty painful. I don't want to be on the receiving end of that.
Absolutely. And that's an illustration of their crazy mobility, I guess. And as far as Gotcha is concerned, the hard thing to do is with Fellgore is to agree with your opponent or on the intention, because with all the ability you have to move and increase your movement and such, it's hard to answer when your opponent say, I will put my guy there, so you will not be able to charge him.
Yeah. It's like, well, maybe not.
Yeah, you're good. You're safe.
Like right now, you're safe, but I'm going to dash at the start of the turn and then go 7 inches, whatever.
Yeah. And ping pong against one of your dude.
There is a wild amount of movement potential in this team, as you say. Like the being able to charge someone that's 10 inches away and then ping pong into someone else is pretty crazy.
And I guess if I have just one last gotcha, it's the Earthgold operative, which is basically the com. That can boost the APL of a model within 3 inches. He also has a very nice ability with its wipe, and basically it makes falling back 3 APL, and so it can be really good against 2 APL team because it's basically a no fallback ability, and the opponent has to have to boost the APL or charge him with another dude or things like that, which basically you don't want to do. And so is far more than just a com, and I really like for him to just be able to charge someone down too, because it would guarantee first to help a lot in melee, and then to even against a ready operative to have an anchor point to charge with my other goats.
And I think as well, the other thing that it does, which is really strong for reducing melee, is it subtracts 1 from the attacks, right? So and we see how impactful that is with the Grizzly Trophy and that sort of thing. It really shouldn't be underestimated, and it's a potential massive combat bonus, right? Because you can move him up to people that are already in melee behind them. You can stop those models from being able to fall back, and you reduce their attacks. And now suddenly they're maybe like 2 attacks or whatever, and they're now locked in combat with someone they don't want to be in combat with that's definitely going to kill them. So that's like a crazy amount of potential control on a 2 APL team that people just don't see coming, I guess.
Yeah, and it also has a little 4-up in melee and in shooting. So even in melee, like he can parry pretty effectively with the little 4-up and stun. So stun is really useful, I would say, in melee, but with a little 4, it comes up big sometimes.
And I guess this leads to a weird potential synergy, right? Where you can be using the whip to give someone -1 APL, like a 3 APL model, and then because they're within the whip range, they now can't fall back because it's going to cost them 3 APL, but they only have 2 now because they're stunned, and so now they're locked and they can't do anything, right? So that is like an interesting way of just saying, no, this model is not going to get to do what you want them to do. And the fact that whip control works on conceal as well is really useful. So almost having him like a screening unit that goes behind and backs up those models that you're worried about losing, I think is really, really strong. So that's a definite gotcha. Be careful of that Earthgold coming in and locking your models up and stopping you from being able to get away. Is there anything else that you think is worth touching on?
No, I think it covers, I wouldn't say everything, but a lot of things already.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's really helpful for people playing against Fellgore for the first time, maybe. So speaking of that, if people are trying to play against them and they think, how am I going to beat this team, right? Because a lot of people, when they see them, I think they get quite intimidated by 10 big goats running across the board. What counterplays or tactics do you think are useful? What people use against you that you find to be really really good?
Well, it's hard to address this kind of question. I think if in an abstract way, without a mission and a specific mashup, but I would say I have like a few things, but the first ones are kind of obvious, it has to do with the way frenzy works. When you are given the choice, like, it's better to shoot a ready model, because they will die no matter what they do, they will die at the end of their activation, and you don't have to spend extra APL then. But I would also say, like, to not underestimate their survivability, as we mentioned before. So a lot of time I saw people like try to be very confident with their ability to do damage turn one, and they often expose themselves or put forward like a model just to toss a frag grenade against the goat. And if it is a frag grenade against the Death Nail operative or the guys next to it, and they have the ploy to auto-retain a hit up, then the frag grenade will do nothing, basically. So I would say, like, it's not because it's only a melee team that you have to expose yourself turn one. You have to play kind of safe. Also, given the fact that a lot of time Fellgore player will play relentless aggression, going forward carelessly will make them very easy. It would be very easy then to score the first point for relentless aggression. So I guess turn one, if you don't have a strong enough or far enough shot, I would say that do not invest too much. It would aggro or risky play, because you would then give Fellgore player a lot of opportunity to control the flow of the game turn two. On the other hand, if you play kind of safe, you grab your objective but don't overextend too much, then if the Fellgore player plan on scoring with relentless aggression and recon, then they will feel like they need to do something to catch up, and they will play maybe more aggressively than they need to. So I guess that's basically what I would say to help against Fellgore.
Yeah, I think there's some really good points there. So, like the standard advice would be, your team of Fellgore in general don't have much range capability, right? So it's weird when you play against these like very, very melee teams, because normally you're so used to having loads of models on conceal, and instead you actually want to have quite a lot of models on engage to be able to do some damage on turning point one. But you're absolutely right. You have to balance that with not overexposing a model to then just get charged, because as we talked about, you can lock them up in combat. You can then pile loads of models onto that, and now suddenly you've got a very safe way of keeping all your models in one place, which your opponent can't do anything about, right? So if you can't shoot into combat as an ability, you're now locked in there, and suddenly you're really in trouble. But I think there's a few other bits that I would recommend to people that are maybe playing against this team. So the standard stuff of route restrictions. So if you can use the counter melee barricades to try and slow down the team where possible, that will help. Additionally, blocking doorways is another good way of doing it, or corridors on ITD. And that's really like an attempt to manage those threat ranges. But we talked earlier about just how difficult that can be with this team, right? Like, they're going to be dashing forwards, they're going to be, moving 7 inches or even charging 9 inches. So you have to be careful with that. But where you can do, try to manage those threat ranges. And then I think there's like a weird element of like, when do you shoot with this team? And often it's going to sound really weird, but like if you're an ITD, for example, you might be better off not shooting them in their own when they're ready, right? Like, you might be better off going on guard and letting them charge you, or waiting for them to activate and then shooting them. That sort of thing. So like moving within range of them, going on guard, and then being like, well, I'm going to let you choose what you want to do. Because if you try and run away, I'm going to shoot you. If you stay where you are, I'm going to shoot you. But then what it lets you do is, if they charge you, it gives you a chance then, right, to potentially kill them before they get their stuff off. Unless, of course, you have like lethal 5 melee or something like that, and that might be a way to be able to do it. And I think there are some teams that I think outperform this team in melee, which is a really rough matchup for Fellgore. Like, I think Exaction Squad, being able to fight first, parry twice, and turn off rerolls, is a really good like as a skill set to defeat this team. It's like perfect, right? And they can shoot into combat. But also like Legionary are probably a good matchup as well.
Oh yeah, basically yes. Those are basically Fellgores are better if they can bully their opponents in melee. So yeah, but I will maybe exact range one. It's they rely a lot on those 4-ups. So maybe it would not be. It will be a very dicey matchup. I never tried, but I expect it will be very dicey.
Yeah, I always describe them as the shield guys as just complete wild cards. And it was like, I never knew what was going to happen. So I would never instigate a fight in that matchup, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm just as likely to die as a Fellgore player is. No one knows. Like, they would run in and they would get their one hit and I would get my, crit in 2 hits, whatever. And I'm like, well, I guess you're dead. There's nothing I can do. And yeah, that sort of thing now is just, yeah, it's mental. And no one really knows what's going to happen. Alrighty, I think we'll move on to unless there's anything else on Fellgores that you want to cover off, we can move on.
I guess as a general point, I would say that if you have if you want to shoot them and if you have the choice, try to put yourself in a spot that is for example far from objective or something like that. If you have the choice, I would say, so that if they can target you on an objective, that's the best position for them. So don't try to get on objective at all cost, basically.
Yeah, you don't want to give them the ability just to hide in combat and be on an objective, because that's like best case for them, right? Is being able to do both those things. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. Well, if you're listening at home and you're tempted, like you're listening to this and you're going, hey, Fellgores are sounding really, really interesting, maybe you want to pick some up, or you think you might want to pick up some other kill teams, try out against them, you can use one of our affiliate links. We have them with Element Games in the UK, Noble Knight Games in the US, or Gap Games in Australia. And it's quite simply like you buy your stuff, it doesn't cost you any extra, but a little bit of money comes back towards us to support the show. So if you are looking at purchasing anything, please give that consideration. All right, then. So We've talked about a few of these bits already, but I just want to sort of go into a little bit about your personal play style and your local meta play style, because I think that's going to be really interesting for people to understand, how you play and how your local teams play, because it is different from meta to meta, and it's really interesting seeing as I have when I've traveled between different scenes how those things play out. So let's start first with your own personal play style. How would you go about describing that if you were to talk about it?
Well, I would say that. Like I said before, what I like about Kill Team is the puzzle solving aspect of it, and so I like dice because that's part of the game, and that's also what makes Kill Team fun. But I mostly like safe play and like I said, controlling the outcome. So I would say I'm a rather safe player. And I'm not overly aggressive, especially when I'm playing on tabletop, because there's a lot of room for. It's hard to measure everything, and so especially with team like Fellgores, it's if you are not doing your positioning well, then you are in a lot of trouble. So I would say that I'm a pretty safe player. As far as my local meta is concerned, my local meta is basically the French meta, I would say, because I don't have a lot of player in my city, but I know a lot of French player with the tournaments. Like we play in a lot of different French cities, and it's a very diversified meta. But there was some time where we had a lot of, elite team, but now it's mostly balanced, and we see a lot of everything, which is great.
I think that's a common trend that I've seen across a few places as well. Actually, is at the moment when I'm trying to do a tier list and that sort of stuff, I'm like, I could not tell you which team is best. Like it's quite hard, and I think there's a few that I'm like, I reckon these guys are going to be at the top of the meta, but a lot of the other teams, I'm like, man, it's so close. And it's really interesting to see just how many people are just playing completely different teams now, and I think that's a really positive thing to see from the community. So let's talk about the French meta a little bit. Like, what sort of terrain do you guys use? And in your tournaments, is it mixed boards? Is it just open, just ITD? Like, how are you guys running it?
So I guess a lot of small tournaments are like fully open because they may not have a lot of terrain dedicated to kill team. So, but I guess that was at the start of the new season, of the new version of Kill Team. Right now, almost every tournament is mixed, like 50-50 open and ITD, and most of the time, like the we'll play the TO will do a good job in order for people not play only in ITD or only in open. For layouts, a lot of them used a very good Turning Point Tactics layout. Not sure you know
I appreciate it.
but and I guess when they do not, then they get something that's close, I guess, in the mindset. So we don't have anything, I guess, special about our meta.
Okay, that's interesting because, like, Spain have their boards are, I guess, much more favourable for shooting teams, and like, it's interesting seeing LVO because they're doing asymmetric into the dark now, and they have obviously completely bespoke terrain made by Luster's Workshop. So I'm really interested to go and give that a go because I think each of these like different boards, they play slightly differently, and there's a lot of skill in a player, I think, to be able to adapt yourself to this different terrain, these different boards, and these different play styles. So it's interesting to hear, and I think, well, I'm really, really keen to get to come down and play in the French community because from what I've heard and what I've seen, you guys seem to have a really strong competitive community and some great guys. But maybe from the community itself, you could tell us why you think people should travel down or come across to France, and what sort of things you reckon would be the benefits of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a small community, but it's growing, and actually this year we'll have a lot of opportunity for people to come and play. We have there is a lot of tournaments that are lined up, and for example, there will be one regular tournament in Paris every month, and I guess during the year there will be some bigger one. So I would say that it's a very good atmosphere if you want to come down and play. We have some more and more people that start playing online on TTS, and we have also people that go and play abroad, either in Spain or in England or in the US. So basically, we have a lot of English speakers, so it's not a problem. So that's one argument. And the other one is that, as I said, that we are going to have a lot of tournaments, and I can also say that we'll have, I don't know when and where, but we'll have big tournaments with, as prize, the silver tickets for next year. So it would be a good opportunity to do like your guys in England to open up the competition, I guess.
Yeah.
So all the more reason to come and visit us, I guess.
I think one of the interesting thing is, like, so you say that you're hoping to have a tournament a month in Paris, right? So that should be relatively easy for most people to get to. So hopefully that can be something that grows, because for all our UK players, you can get a flight, you can get a train, you can drive over, whatever. There's various routes to get to Paris quite quickly, and same for the rest of Europe, I guess. So that'd be really awesome, I think. And it's interesting seeing how many French players have been coming over to some UK events. Like Remy's been coming over quite a bit to and putting up some pretty good competition. I think he's placed pretty well at multiple events. So he's been representing France well. So it'd be interesting to see if we can come down and maybe we're on his home turf advantage. It might be a little bit harder for us to get away with it, but we'll have to wait and see. Do you have any like local gaming clubs that you want to shout out and mention when you might have local events? If there's someone listening from France and they want to try and find where they can play, maybe?
I don't have in my city. There is not a lot of gaming. It's not a small city by far, but there is not a lot of kill team going on. I just want to shout out to my team, Tijuana Bay. We are a competitive team, and but I guess for the best thing to learn about what's going on for French tournament is to go on the various Discord, and we will try to update like the worldwide QT2 community about upcoming tournament in France.
Awesome. What I'll do is I'll put a link to that in the description. So if you're a French player and you're looking at getting involved, or you're a European player and you want to travel across, or maybe you're even an international player and you want to get across to France and play, you can reach out to the guys via that then, I guess. And that might be a good way to put people in contact and figure out when these events are. Because, I mean, I'm a massive fan of trying to get the communities to come together a little bit. And every single time I've gone to a new community, it's been such a good experience. And as you say, I think people are worried about language barriers, all that sort of stuff, but I've just never had any issues. It's lucky for me because I mean I'm a silly English guy and always do speak English, but luckily everyone else is far better educated than me, so they can speak it. So yeah, I'm quite lucky in that respect. But yeah, it'd be awesome to try and see if we can do that in 2024. This is the year I think of Kill Team. So let's see what we can do, because that was the coolest part of Warhammer Champs was getting to see all those communities come together in one place and represent their home grounds. And I think France did well, but let's see what France can do in this year's Champs. And I'm hoping that we're going to get a bigger contingent from the UK and perform even better than we did this year. So that'd be really, really cool.
Absolutely.
I've just got like two last things to cover off, I think. So the first one is like I used to ask people just for a generic kill team tip. So it doesn't have to be related to Fellgore, but something that people can take away as a tactical bit of advice that they might be able to use, or a generic kill team advice from a hobby perspective. So do you have a kill team tip for people listening to the show?
Yes, actually. My tip may sound kind of dumb, but it's actually a broken strategy, and it is actually to learn the rules. Because a kill team is a strategic game. A strategic mindset is very important about how doing your position, what you're playing to do, not next turn, but the turn after that. But it's involved also a lot of what I like to call like puzzle solving problems. Most of the time, like at the end of the game, when the strategic aspect is less important. But how can you solve those problems if you don't know what you can or cannot do? And I actually seen a lot of game lost to a forgotten interaction. Like, for example, the fact that you can charge or move within engagement range of an enemy operative if it is itself in combat. Like, I've seen maybe literally 2 games lost because of that.
It comes up all the time.
And the strategies of learning the rule is so broken that you don't even have to play actually to improve your knowledge of the rule. I guess the best way to do that is when you learn a team, like be curious about the rule interaction, and make sure that you understand the finer details, and try to watch other people play and ask yourself okay, what they can do there. Did the player miss something? I guess it helped me a lot about this aspect of the game. It's maybe not the most fun, but I guess for some people it is, and I include myself.
Well, there's not just that, but because and I think you made a fantastic point there, right? Because it's not just about learning the rules of the core game, because that's massive in itself, and people still get it wrong all the time. But so that's one part to crack. But also learning the rules of your opponent's teams is huge, right? And it's almost endless. So if you can just chip away at that constantly, then you're going to be in a better place each time you go into a game, because learning what we call them gotchas or their abilities are of various teams, and being able to figure out how to solve them, I think is absolutely massive. So, we're going to try and help people do that in 2024. So we're releasing the Threat Guide series. It's going to come out hopefully weekly, and people will be able to learn about a team, see their strengths, see their weaknesses, get their gotchas, and hopefully be given a little bit of a strategy on how to beat them to make it a little bit easier. But don't be afraid to do some book learning yourself in the meantime, right? Because that's a great point. It's learning the core rules and making sure you know everything that's available to you is a massive broken strategy. So people should definitely be doing that. So you might have watched an episode of Turning Point 5 and seen my co-host Jason. He is very, very keen on this question being added to every single podcast and really getting it out there so that we know a bit more about the meta. And the question is, what is your favourite biscuit and why? So we need to know this from a French perspective.
No. Okay, so yeah, as a French, it might not ring a bell for you, but I live in Nantes, France, so I have to say that it is the French petit beurre, which is a very simple biscuit made with just flour, butter, and some sugar. It's really simple, but really nice, and can be used to make a lot of delicious cakes. So,
okay. So there we go. A little bit of French pride in there. So when we come to the French tournaments, I'm expecting to have these available. And if you come to the UK, you've got to bring them as well, right? So,
yeah, and yes, I will be gladly giving you some, because additionally they come with those nice, beautiful metal boxes, like old school metal boxes, and it's very useful to put your model there.
Ideal. That's what we all need. We need a nice tin to store stuff. Well, Nigerian, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you've been a treasure trove of information when it comes to Fellgore Ravagers. So hopefully we'll get you on again soon. Is there anything that you want to any shout outs you want to make? Anyone you want to say thank you to, or anything like that before we sign off?
Just a big shout out to the French community and all the TOs of the French TOs, I guess, that spend time to organize such nice event to meet and play this great game that is Kill Team. And also a happy new year to everyone.
Absolutely. Yes, a happy new year. And again, thank you to all the TOs across the world. You guys are incredible. What you do really, really does make a difference. And it helps make our amazing community what it is. And lets us do things like this, right, where people are meeting people across the world and talking about an amazing game. So to all the people that are involved in Kill Team, I appreciate it. Happy New Year. And I look forward to having a very successful 2024. So that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. And hopefully you found something new or useful while listening. If you did, throw in a like, would be greatly appreciated, and share this with your friends so they can benefit as well. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell icon so you get notifications as soon as the next one drops. It really is the best way to help a small channel like ours. And if you can't wait and you do want early access, you can join the Patreon, where you get exclusive access to all of our content ahead of time, as well as exclusive videos, access to the Discord, tournament rewards, etc., etc. If you are an existing patron, let me take this moment once again and say a massive thank you for your support. It really does mean the world to me and the rest of the Turning Point Tactics community. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Drop a comment and below, and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Ryan. This has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next time.